Okay, so as promised, I am going to give you guys a second video with some tips about how to maybe do some simple things that might really improve your stuff. But first, as it turns out, Bailey did turn his assignment in tonight, so let's go over his real quick. His letter mark is very prominent here, and it's on a off-white background, so a little cream. This is a serif font that's been kerned quite a bit, so it's unique, and I kind of like. This might surprise some of you, but I do kind of like the font here. I've always kind of been a sucker for some of those more classic serif body copy fonts, and this one in particular looks nice as a subhead. If you don't recognize some of his stuff, it's because he filled it in with placeholder text. And in InDesign, you can actually fill in text boxes with gibberish, pretty much. But you know, it's an option. But one thing that I think that putting in real content gives us the flexibility to do is see the design for what the content provides, and then adjusting for the space that is created. And for example, for this list of skills, I'd recommend that, hey Bailey, you just list 3 to 4. And I'm not a huge fan of bullet points, as I've kind of reviewed with other people's designs, so I would suggest maybe getting rid of some of those. And maybe with this logo, bring it down a touch, maybe sort of dial back the drop shadow effect just a little bit. I do kind of am curious about this. I like this more and more as I see it. I just think that this, like obviously the height of this logo is what creates all this space underneath. I don't know. I mean, I think it's worth exploring maybe how the size of this changes that up. And I kind of like some of the colors and textures that you brought into your first project. So maybe seeing how that kind of gets worked in here without just doing a cream colored background. It's classy, but one thing that I would suggest Bailey as you do the second round is let's put in actual stuff. It doesn't have to be real, but let's put in what the resume might actually read like, 5, 10, 20 years down the road. That was kind of the assignment. So I think that if you put in real stuff, and again, maybe this was kind of like because you forgot about the assignment, who knows. But let's put in real stuff for the next time, the next round, and that will kind of dictate and help you decide how much space you have to work with. And I think that might allow you some options design-wise. Okay? Now, here's a few different things that I would give you to help you sort of, all of you, to help you sort of make some quick adjustments that might go a long way in your resumes. So here's mine, and like I said in the past, it needs work. It does reflect my website. My website is very white and black and gray. I added some yellow accents recently, and so maybe that's a thing that I should add. But point is, as simple as it might be and as lame as it might look, I was just kind of worried about making something real quick that would look good next to the website, I guess. And that's one thing I think that we should remember in this project, is that one of the purposes was designing something that looks like it can stand or sit alongside the first project that you created. As a brand, you have to make those elements consistent throughout, related designs. So don't forget that as you kind of go back to this, and maybe doing something like that, going back to maybe what that first design, I don't know, turned out to be, would help guide you in some decision making here. I have the luxury of downloading my own fonts. If you guys have your own machines and your own Adobe accounts, you probably have the ability to do the same. Unfortunately, at school, it's difficult or impossible to download fonts off the internet, so we can find some ways around that, perhaps, but you're always welcome to go online and explore. DaFont.com is my favorite place to download font files, and you can sort by what's public domain and what's not free, so you can kind of know what you can and can't use. I've just sort of stuck to these sans serif fonts, and there's only 3 text treatments here, if you don't count the italics. There's one headline font, which my name and section headers are in. It's probably Helvetica, if I can get this. Yes. And Body copy is just 12 point Helvetica, either a medium or a regular. The medium provides just a slight difference between, for example, in this case, the company name and the position underneath. So one thing you'll notice about my design in particular is that I put in less content purposefully. I don't think that I have to kind of list a bunch of stuff out. And in fact, in my mind, in my experience, resumes kind of serve as the outline to what you're presenting. And the stuff that you can fill in with bullet points, you can probably, put in a cover letter or, elaborate more during interviews. But for me, I've always been inclined to just include the basics, titles, contact info, and not go too far into the details. So that's just my preference. And if you guys want to lean that way, you're going to find yourselves free up a lot of space for design. So I'd recommend that maybe if you are seeing that there's not a lot of space in your design, bring down the font a bit. That's one thing. Create some space, do less things with shapes, and perhaps just, I don't want to say water down, but generalize some of these things and make it kind of high level. One last thing, actually two last things I'll say, is you can kind of tell that this is made in a very simple 2-column grid. The margins are very kind of wide, and it sort of leans left, but the second column is wider, so it seems balanced in the end. Because all this space is created by, short lines and stuff like that, it doesn't seem too heavy over here. And so this is an example of the content that creates that balance. And it wasn't intentional. I mean, this is just the way that my career is sort of just lined up, but it's created kind of just this empty space right here. And that was unintentional, but this space right here was very intentional. And so the way that you decide to arrange things, for me, it's primarily based on how someone's eyes might move across and then down this design. If you were to remove these 3 accents, by the way, this gray rectangle, this line right here, and this line right here, I'll do them all, it's still okay, but I thought, this is probably what I started with. I added a few things, like a column border on top and a column border on the bottom, and then I added this at the end, because to me it kind of just completed the whole idea. I didn't think that it was complete without those things. The point is, you can complete design with simple, small actions like that, because something as simple as a 1-point line can go a long way, I guess. In this case, it's a 2-point line, but you see my point. Again, very minimal, and I think I should revisit this and do something more with it, and so that's kind of my assignment. Here's a few things from some examples that I've seen online, and I recommend that you guys go out here and look for yourselves, because there's a lot of stuff that I think are very, very achievable if you look at them in kind of a modular way. Everything is built in rectangles and squares for the most part, and lines for separation. Now, you can kind of create the illusion that there are multiple sections with color. That's something that Anthony did in his. And I think it's worth exploring for all of us. Can a colored section create some column differences? And, I think there are different ways to do that. Sometimes people can go a little too far, or do a little too much. Not a huge fan of Gear's background on this guy. So you can, at the same time, overdo it with that practice. So I think there's a fine line and a good balance between doing not enough, doing too much, and there's all kinds of different ways to arrange information on a page. And the only purpose, no matter what solution you decide to utilize, is if all the information is readable, if the reader remains interested in how it's presented. Those are the two things that you have to kind of think about. And when you kind of look at a lot of these things that are out there, you can see all the competition in just this design space, because a lot of people are, doing a lot of these techniques. Some folks do it a lot less successful than others. This case, it's a bit all over the place. But my point in showing you this is that you can glean a lot of different design styles and ideas from looking at things like this. But it can also teach you what not to do. What I would suggest with you guys is to go out there to a place like this, look at some things, find something that you like, and it's totally cool with me if that influences the way that you put yours together. Because like I said before, the mission of this module is not to just get through it. It's to understand the steps that it takes to put together a layout that's successful. And at the end of the day, if the design is successful, like I said, it engages the reader. All the information that is needed to be read can be read. And as a bonus, it can be very unique. So my challenge for you is to do all those things, especially be unique. And if something is out there that you like and you're curious about how to put it together, just ask me or ask your classmates, and I'm sure we'd all be happy to help you get there. So let's take our designs a step further, and if you have more questions about this assignment to help you achieve success here, then by all means, let me know. So do some research, find some things you like, and try to just sort of, apply some of those concepts to your pieces. And I think that as long as you sort of, do the basics, think about space, bring down text a little bit, and just make sure every section has its own room, I think that you're going to find that those simple steps are going to improve your designs quite a bit. So, again, if you have questions about font and how to get more, I'll try to do the best that I can. I could ask the school and see if there's new rules about downloading stuff, but if not, you might just have to work with what Adobe gives us. So that's my second video, and if you guys want some more information or some tutorials, that's something else that I'm more than willing to help you guys out with. So let me know if there's anything that is stumping you, and I'll try to help solve your problem. Anyway, have a good time designing this, and if you have questions, let me know.